Hello, Denise. Welcome back to the Victim to Victor podcast. How are you today?
Oh, it's great to be back and to have a chance to talk some more about all of these healing activities that we can do and learn together.
Yeah, we do. And we just have so many that we have to try and get through. And so this is going to be the start of a series of episodes, which myself and Denise are going to cover because we've got a range of topics that we both want to cover. And today is going to be a very important topic and one which has become even more prominent during the COVID pandemic, and that's of burnout and resilience. So some of you may have already come across burnout and resilience because there's been a lot of research on it. If you go onto Google, you'll see tons of research that is being carried out currently because it is a bit of an epidemic. Wouldn't you agree, Denise?
I think so. I mean, as COVID has been such a challenge for us and turning things that used to be simple, like going to the grocery store or visiting your friends, have made that such a loaded situation for us. And there's so much fear and anxiety that it's very easy to become overwhelmed and overloaded very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think a lot of this is because of what's happened? A lot of people are at home and they're just saturated by information and things to do. Do you think that's what's caused the burnout?
I think so. I think it's this trying to keep up and understand how to protect yourself and be safe, how to juggle all the things that you used to be able to rely on some other people. Like now, people staying home to take care of their kids or get them through school. They're trying to work from home. They're trying to overlap so many things that they used to be able to space out or have additional help to do. So I think it's just things have been piling up and piling up. And just that sense of out of controlness that we have in COVID, not knowing what's coming, how it's going to shift or change, not knowing what to do necessarily to take care of ourselves. And the information keeps shifting, right? That we're getting online and from the news media, that's changing all the time. And it's just hard to keep up. It just seems this constant thing happening. You know, every step you take feels like it has to be informed about what you're going to do because of COVID. And that can be very triggering for survivors because we've been in that situation before when if you've been abused as a child or sexually assaulted where you felt out of control and you didn't have a way to sort of process and get through those things in a healthy way. And so for some, me in particular, I can say it was true. It was just really triggering to try to keep my husband safe with all his risk factors, try to figure out how we can move forward and live as normal a life as we could. But figuring that all out and trying to make sense of what's real and not, what's real facts and fake news and all of that, it is very confusing. I mean, how was it there for you? I know that was our experience in the States. What was it like for you?
Yeah, likewise. I mean, we've been talking about this quite recently, amongst my peer group about just the fear propaganda that we're being exposed to on a daily basis from the news, and the amount of death rates from COVID, apparently from COVID anyway, and just now with the vaccination. I mean, you have a lot of people who are against the vaccine, but we're being forced to take it. Even if, we've never had a vaccine in our whole lives, it's the amount of letters that we're being sent, the amount of text messages that I'm receiving as well. And I just think it's a lot of pressure. And yeah, you're right. And I think it is linked to burnout because we're constantly trying to research the side effects of the vaccine and we're trying to find out more about it. But again, there's just so much mixed information online, and anybody against the vaccine are conspiracy theorists. And again, they're being slandered and all this stuff's being taken off the internet. And it really does quite make you question, and it makes you really confused.
Yeah, and I think that people are just pushed to the edge. We all have a certain level of energy that we can sustain. And that's what we talk about when we talk about resilience. There's a lot of great books out there for folks that want to learn more about it. Rick Hanson is a longtime meditation practitioner. He's a therapist, and he also is very knowledgeable about your brain and how your brain works and how it relates to meditation and therapy. But he has written a wonderful book about resilience. Linda Graham has written a couple of books. Gail Gazelle has written one. And I love Gail's description of resilience because she calls it a well of resilience. And it's a great visualization, right? Because you're thinking about not that people are born with resilience or not. It's not something that you're born with or not. It's something you can
No.
develop. You can fill your well up with things.
Yes.
And it can be anything that really nurtures you. It can be taking
Mm.
walks in nature. It can be doing art. It can be reading or spending time with, your family, pets, whatever it is that
Okay.
really rejuvenates and energizes you. And I think that's part of the problem with this burnout and this overwhelm, is that we haven't been able to do those things that normally we would do to build our well of resilience. We've had to find
Yeah.
other things, and sometimes we haven't been able to replace those, so our wells are draining. And it's like a
Wow.
teeter-totter, right? If you have a lot of resilience, the overwhelm is not so much happening in your life. And then as your
Yeah.
well drains, all of a sudden the overwhelm just starts coming on. And I think that's
Okay.
something that people maybe can start thinking about and say, oh, what can I do to help me fill my well up with information that I learn about what's good for me, what I explore, and what can I do to make sure that I keep myself healthy. We have to take care of ourselves first before we can take care of other people.
Yeah.
And if you go to the point of burnout, that's not going to help you. Like you have to worry about taking care of your son, and
Yeah.
I take care of my family. So it's something we have to really focus on. What do you think about that definition that I gave about this well of resilience? Does that ring true for you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think definitely, from our backgrounds that we've had of, trauma, suffering, and, overcoming abuse, I think that creates a resilience of its own, because, we were obviously there having to defend ourselves from a young age. And just that inner strength that we've gained, I think it's really powerful in helping prevent burnout. But to be honest, like when I think about burnout, I think about how I am in my professional life, because as a way of actually escaping the demons that I was feeling inside, I was always like overworking, just doing like 76 hours a week of work. And then, if I wasn't working, then I'd be really like going out and traveling and having like 6 holidays a year, and just like whatever I was doing, I was burning out because I was doing it to the extreme. And I know that's a result of the trauma. So, even though I might have had this strength from a young age, it was harming me in other ways, I guess, on my mental health and longevity on my brain, which hadn't developed properly because I wasn't brought up in a safe environment. My brain had obviously developed to sustain more kind of fight or flight. So it was more to do with the stress response rather than stability and safety, which is how a healthy brain should be developed from a young age.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, that I love for people to be reminded of that survivors being reminded, like what you said, that strength that got us through what we had to experience. We may not even recognize that or appreciate that, but that strength can push us to the edge. I became a perfectionist. You were a workaholic and traveling to kind of escape your situation. And those behavior patterns were there for a reason. They were trying to help us, but we can kind of look at those and say, okay, we don't need to be doing those kind of things in order to appreciate our strength and leverage our strength. Our strength can go too far. So we need to sort of find a balance there. You can be really on the extreme with your strength, or you can be completely lacking in your strength. But if you can find the middle ground and find some balance where it's serving you and not pushing you, then it's a great way to have that be part of your resilience, to say, I'm a strong person. I can make it through this. I'll be able to figure it out. I don't know necessarily all the things I need to do, but I figured out how to live my life until now. I'm going to be able to do it from here. And what else can I do beyond recognizing and having this strength? What can I do to build my energy and to support that strength so it can support me?
Yeah. What do you think is the opposite of resilience?
Well, I think that, the vulnerability in a real fragile sense is kind of the opposite of resilience. The getting caught in overwhelm, all of those things to me feel like they're when you're not able to cope, whatever term you want to use, whatever language you want to use, you can't bounce back from things. You're just constantly knocked down and they can't seem to get up and keep moving forward with the way you want to live your life. So you can use a lot of different language for that. But if we think of resilience as what helps us keep going, but also when we run into challenges, it allows us to not get knocked down. It allows us to kind of keep standing and keep moving forward from after that event. And I think that's something we definitely can learn. I know that you write about it in your book. I write about it in my book, and trying to tell people that we have to be gentle with ourselves and recognize that challenges are going to maybe impact us, but we can build up that resilience so that it's not as big an impact for us.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I can definitely resonate with that, because even the opposite of resilience, I felt that majority of my life too, right? It's strange. And I guess it's about applying it to different aspects of your life. In terms of the vulnerability, wow, I was very vulnerable when it came to relationships. Strange, isn't it? Whereas in my work life, I was highly resilient. So I know that's as a consequence of the trauma.
Yeah, and I think that kind of what you're saying is you learn to kind of compartmentalize things, right? You had your work life where you could be really super strong, workaholic personality, and then there's other parts of your life that maybe you couldn't tap into it in the same way, and you had vulnerabilities there that didn't express themselves in your work situation, and that's pretty common for people in general. But I think survivors, we learn to compartmentalize the abuse versus what we're trying to do with the rest of our life. Sometimes abuse would like squeeze out the rest of that tiny little bit of the rest of our life. But we learn to compartmentalize just in order to get through it, you know, to deal with the emotional pain, the physical anguish, the psychological impact of all of that. And I think that that's part of one of the things that builds a resilient person, is that they can show up authentically as themselves whenever and wherever. They don't have to compartmentalize and show up as a certain person or in a certain way. You know, obviously environments require certain skills to be brought forward, and be mindful of that and skillful of that. But at the same time, we don't want to just completely separate our lives into these tiny little packets. We want to be the full human being all the time, right? So it sounds like you found a lot of ways to maybe get out of that compartmentalization. How did you start doing that?
Wow, I mean, like just you going on about authenticity all the way, that's exactly how I'm feeling now. And oh wow, it has been such a long journey for me. Wow, yeah, I mean, where I am today, I know it's as a consequence of you know, the fact that I'm out there now, you know, that I wrote my book and I'm actually educating others and trying to help others. That's been my real teachings. It's actually the fact that I'm providing to others. You know, it wasn't so much that, yeah, you know, my therapies and all my healing helped me, but I just feel like this is now the real growth that I'm experiencing, and the pure authenticity. And yeah, you know, we've discussed on previous podcasts about all of the healing modalities like yoga, meditation. That was also beneficial because, you know, not only did they help to heal, you know, my chakras, you know, to unblock all my chakras and to obviously balance out all my energy levels and to protect my aura, you know, I also developed, you know, a more sane and stable mental health. And I feel like my brain's just changed as well. You know, it's not living in fear.
And I think that's what people forget sometimes, because they're so overwhelmed with everything that's happening from recovering from their abuse and the environment that we're in, that we forget that our brains can be our friend. It feels sometimes like they're your enemy. I mean, it's telling you all these negative things, but we can retrain our brain. You know, in neuroscience, they understand now that you can literally rewire your brain, so that you can take those old behavior patterns, the way you used to face the world, the way you used to compartmentalize yourself. You can change that. It takes work, right? It took time to develop all of those patterns in the past, but the fabulous news is it doesn't matter how old you are, your brain can still be rewired to look for the positive, to be in a space where you can trust yourself and that you can have the ability to be authentic. And that's the real wonder of what we've discovered. Now, they didn't know the intricacies of the actual brain rewiring 3,000 years ago with the Buddha and so on, but they got that there was some capability, the innate human ability to learn, to grow, and to continue to evolve. So we're just kind of catching up on the West with what was in the East, but that's to me was what's so positive is it doesn't matter what I have gone through. I have the ability to change. I have the ability to literally rewire myself to find something better. And that's where this resilience comes in, is like, okay, I can tap into that. I can create my own resilience. I don't have to get it from the outside. I don't have to have been born with it. I can learn about it. I can read about it. I can do various things that I find energizing for me, and I can really develop that resilience. And then with that teeter-totter, I'm going to build up my resilience, and hopefully the overwhelm may not go away, but it certainly can be reduced, the anxiety, the fear, and at least you'll be able to deal with whatever's there.
Wow. Okay. And so what do you feel are the main kind of telltale signs of somebody who might be experiencing burnout right now?
Mental exhaustion, physical exhaustion, just the lack of energy to do what you need to do, and also the things you enjoy doing. That's the irony, is that you lose the interest and the capability of engaging in the things that you love, which are the things that are nurturing. And just feeling like the huge anxiety. It's not feeling like necessarily there's an anxiety pointed at any one thing. It's just this overall anxiety that just doesn't seem to go away. And there's fear there too. And feeling like you won't be able to cope with it. It's just, I don't have the skills. I don't have the energy to deal with this. That to me is what overwhelm feels like. What do you think from your side? What does it feel like?
Yeah, I just feel like a lot of self-doubt, self-judgment. I mean, I'm just going by from my own experiences, and I know that that there have been different stages of burnout that have been described at the Winona State University. That they actually did a burnout study there, and they observed a few different phases, where we start off with a honeymoon phase, and that's basically I guess, it reminds me really much of the narcissistic stages, actually, because they have a honeymoon phase as well. And then there's like an onset of stress phase, a chronic stress burnout, and then the habitual burnout. Wow, and this is what I'm loving about this, the fact that there's just been so many studies done on it. And they've actually described burnout to be linked to depression and just exhaustion, illnesses. I just couldn't even believe that. I guess it's that long-term stress eventually is going to impact on your health and well-being, right? And then obviously in terms of how we can overcome that, it's mindset, really. It's changing your mindset, and it's also looking at a more holistic approach to life, rather than just being stuck in a rat race, where we're just constantly chasing. And I guess that's where the resilience comes in.
Yeah, I think resilience is really a personal thing. You have to figure out what it is that nurtures you. Some people, it may be watching sports on television. They get excited, cheering on their team. Other people may be playing sports. There's so many activities that we can look at in your life is what is it? I love listening to music. I love dancing to the music I'm listening to, and it doesn't take much time each day to do that. If you can get, 5 minutes to do something that's nurturing to you, obviously the more you can have that, the better it will be to feel you're well. But if you just give yourself that opportunity every day, and it doesn't have to be a big deal, big production. It's like, okay, in my car, I'm going to listen to my favorite tunes, or, if I'm still at home in lockdown, I can still make the time to listen to some music before I jump into my workday. But it's scheduling time as a gift to yourself to say, okay, I'm prescribing this for myself. I'm tasking myself to say, I can do this. I can give myself this opportunity, but it has to be something that you see that you need, and you acknowledge that you deserve to have it, and to make it part of a habit to give yourself that if at all possible.
Yeah, so I guess it's about accepting it, acknowledging it, freeing yourself from it. Yeah, eventually. And I know that they also mentioned about control, and how that can really have an impact on burnout, because I guess when you are lacking control of your life and what's around you, then I guess that could also lead to burnout.
Yeah, and it's just like you feel like nothing you do is going to make a difference sometimes. that's kind of where burnout comes in too. And if you don't feel like you have agency or control in your life, then how am I going to make a change? How am I going to make a difference? How am I going to get out of the situation I'm in, which can be, the overwhelm comes in from that. And I think whatever you can do to recognize what you do have control over, you have control over some things in your life and some things you don't. So you have to recognize that. Like you said, you have to identify that, acknowledge that, and then say, okay, what do I really have control over? And without getting really tied in, OCD about it, what can I recognize? And even if it's making lists, to say, listen, I can control when I brush my teeth, when I have breakfast, when I take a break, whatever you have, and start recognizing those things and appreciating those things. It's not going to be the full solution to it, but at least you might begin to see that it's not completely out of your control. That's when the burnout really hits you. It's like, I have absolutely no control over what's happening. Well, recognizing that you do, even if it's the smallest thing, I think that helps.
Yeah, and I guess it's about like us women as well. We have a lot now in this day and age where we're all doing our full-time jobs. We're raising our children, and there's a lot of demands placed upon us. And I know that sometimes I experience this where I have to say no to people. And it's about having those boundaries, about just saying no. If you can't fit it in, or if you just aren't in the right headspace to go and see family or friends, or to take your little child out if they need to, and you just need to rest, and just plan it in another time, right? Because our mental health is so much more important right now, more so than ever. We really have to take care of ourselves, and I know that boundaries are really important for a lot of us at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that ties back to, what do I have control over? I have control over where I spend my energy, where I spend my time. And it's really hard. It's really hard to say no, but sometimes no is the best thing for you and whoever you might be saying no to, because if you can't show up as yourself authentically the way you want to in that situation, then you're going to start feeling guilty. You might have some of that shame and self-doubt creeping in. So you almost feed into it. Exactly, and there's gracious ways to say no. There's ways to be authentic and just say, I'm sorry, I just need some time for myself. And hopefully the people you're working with will respect and understand that. I think there's a bigger understanding of people needing that kind of quiet time. And sometimes you have to look at it and say, well, maybe this time saying yes would actually be beneficial. Can I stretch myself a little bit to say yes this time? Would that work for me? I don't want to shut the door and just say, I'm going to say no to everything, but weigh that every time. Would it be good for me to try it? Nope. I've checked in with myself. I still need to be saying no. Then that's your choice. But I think that being open to looking at that each time and understanding what the opportunity is, and maybe even if you go somewhere and do something, maybe just for a little bit of time, you show up, you say hi, you're out of there, whatever it takes to kind of find a balance, because, we get to be so all or none thinking. Either I'm not going or I'm fully in. Well, maybe you don't have to be fully in. Maybe you can show up and just be there for a little bit, make a few connections. And when it starts to feel like too much, like, it's great seeing you all, I'm going to go ahead and go. So overwhelm is hard. Like you said, it ties into depression, it ties into anxiety, and sometimes we're not thinking straight. And so we have to just really check in and find out what do we need, what's best for us, and let's not be all or none in our thinking. Let's try to find a way to go in the middle ground a little bit. And sometimes that's what we need to do, is take a step back and say, all right, what's the middle ground here? And can I find that?
It is, and because I've been reading a lot of books where one of them is say yes, basically just say yes to everything, because life's too short and we should always take whatever's thrown at us, because what's the point of wasting your life sleeping, right? If you could be out enjoying yourself or meeting people. And I guess that leads me on to adversity as well, because once we've overcome adversities, which we have from such a young age, it helps us to have that resilience, doesn't it? And they say just kind of coming out of your comfort zone as well, like having cold showers, all of that really helps, doesn't it, to build resilience, because you're overcoming your comfort zone, you're overcoming challenges of life quite easily. So do you have any kind of like trick that you do to help you to get out of the comfort zone on a daily basis?
Well, for me, it's not letting myself be afraid of what might happen. You know, what might happen. I can spin all kinds of stories about what could happen. And
Yeah.
so just being open to, I'm going to step into this and I'm going to be not go in with any assumptions around it and just try to be as open as I can and be true and authentic to myself. But I like to stretch myself in certain areas. So I like to stretch myself in art and exploring that. You know, I'm an introvert. I recognize that. I'm okay with that. That means that I'm not going to be outgoing and doing a lot of socializing in big groups. I have my key people I hang out with, and that's fine. Now, if you're an extrovert, you may really get a lot of juice from hanging out in crowds and doing things with lots of people, and that's your style and your personality. That's fantastic, you know. But I think it's whatever you can do in your space to say, okay, let me try something a little different, but again, not all or none thinking. I don't have to jump in all the way. Let me try it and see. You know, I love exploring new things like art or new foods, new restaurants, and that sort of thing. So that's my little edge out beyond being a full introvert and, you know, staying at home. But I think, you know, saying yes to everything puts a lot of pressure on people, especially if it's not your style of doing things. I think it's say yes whenever you can to stretch yourself and also to give yourself an opportunity to experience something new. The times that I said, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot, I have gotten so much back. I'm like, oh, I really enjoyed that. I would have never thought that I enjoyed doing that. That was great. Let me do it some more. So you give yourself the opportunity to find a new hobby or a new set of friends or a new whatever that maybe if you had said, nah, I don't think that's for me, you would have missed out on that. You know, so I think it can be fun to stretch a little bit and to explore, because so many new things can be allowed into our lives if we just stretch just a little bit beyond what we might normally be comfortable with.
Yeah, no, I like that. And also the importance of positive self-talk, you know, because I always say I'm an optimist, and that's because, you know, I never kind of bring myself down by talking myself down, and, you know, my vocabulary and, you know, whatever I communicate to people, I feel, and I've also been told, it's positive, you know, it's about inspiring people and lifting them up. And I think rather than doing it to everyone else, we need to start at doing that to ourselves. Do you think that that's an epidemic of itself, like negative self-talk?
Oh, absolutely. And it's an easy habit to get into. I know that for us as survivors, we were told a lot of negative things. We came to believe a lot of negative things about ourselves, maybe even internalize the voices of the people who were causing us the pain and were abusing us. And so we can have this soundtrack going in our head, these voices in our head, just repeating that negativity. And I, for one, I actually put myself down out loud when I was young. Oh, you're so stupid. That was ridiculous. That's, you know, all this stuff. And I had friends finally say, stop doing that. And that was the first step, was for me just to not speak what I was hearing in my head. And slowly, if I stopped speaking, I stopped reinforcing it. Now think about what we talked about before about wiring your brain. If you're saying negative stuff about yourself all the time, you're wiring your brain to think that way. But you're saying, oh, you know what, I focus on inspiring people and I speak positive language. That's rewiring your brain to focus on the positive. And I think that it's too easy to beat ourselves up. It's way too easy to do that. And if we can, even if you can't immediately jump from all the way from being negative, being positive, you can work your way there. At least stop saying the negative stuff, right? Stop saying the negative stuff. And then figure out something positive, like, you know, you're really great at brushing your teeth. You're really great at finding nice clothes to wear. You're really great, you know, talk to yourself a little bit to bump yourself up. I had affirmations on my mirror, on stickies on my mirror so that I could read them. And as silly as it sounds,
that's great.
Says, you know, I am fabulous. You know, it felt weird to say that to myself, but something like that where you could say something positive to start your day and set the tone for your day and get rid of that negative self-talk, because we've heard too much of that when we were young.
We did.
Put that aside, you know, let's try to find a way to shift. And I love that you get yourself to be positive because your goal is to inspire people.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing to say, I can shift into this space because I have a goal to inspire people. So that motivates me to show up as this person and to be that person that I want to be.
Yeah, and again, this is a pretty new way of living for me, because like yourself, it was always I was getting so offended by everybody, and just even looking at stuff on social media, if I'd see pictures of people who were at places or who were with their partners, they look really happy. I used to think, oh, I feel so bad, I just want to be like them, oh, I'm such a loser. It was awful. And then whatever I was feeling about myself, I was putting it onto others as well, saying, yeah, they're losers. It was awful. What a horrible state to be in. And again, a lot of that boils down to lacking self-love and just not appreciating myself. And I never used to realize the importance of self-love. I never understood it because I never understood love. And I know what it is. It's valuing yourself, as the most amazing human that you are on the planet, and just having that relationship with yourself, which is, what we haven't really been taught to do. But I feel like we all need to learn to marry ourselves, because I always feel, how can you be in a relationship with anybody? Like, I don't understand how teenagers get into relationships, even young adults, if they haven't done any work on themselves already. You don't know who you are. Like, how can you be in a relationship with someone unless you're planning on compromising and growing together, which I think again is a beautiful feeling. But I think nowadays everyone wants their own lives, they want to be a bit independent. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said in self-love.
Yeah, and I agree. I kind of boiled down my approach. I've learned a lot from all kinds of different religions, all kinds of books that I've read. And for me, I try to keep it as simple as possible, because when you're overwhelmed, you're distracted, you're under a challenge, you forget the complicated things that you would afterwards go, oh, I should have done X, Y, Z, but there's this long list of things I should have done. So I try to keep it simple and sort of, I don't know if you call it a motto or approach to life, but basically I've decided that what I need to do is two things.
Yeah.
I need to be kind to others.
Nice.
And I need to be gentle to myself.
Wow.
And so kind to others, compassionate, open, respectful, try to treat them as best that I can.
Beautiful.
And then for myself, that gentleness comes where you were talking about self-love. Can I be compassionate and kind to myself? Can I be the voice of my best friend who would say all these supportive, caring, wonderful, understanding things to me? Can I internalize that voice and be my own best friend, be gentle? Yeah. I'm going to make mistakes. I don't have to beat myself up. I can just challenge myself to do better. And I can try to show up with kindness, because if you bring that, like you said, if you're judging yourself and judging other people, there's this energy you bring to your situations. But if I come gentle to myself and kind to other people, I'm kind of setting the tone. It may not work out, some people just roll right over that, and there goes your kindness, but you can keep trying. You can keep trying to show up. But if I have that intention, it gives me the space. There's this kind of spaciousness that I can go into something where it gives me room, that I'm not knocked off my feet. I have that resilience again. So that's just something that I'm trying. I just started thinking about it that way and thought, okay, I have something I can say to myself that's really simple when I'm working with other people. And then also it's two parts. I got to be doing something for myself as well.
This is it. You can't portray on other people what you're not doing yourself. You'd be a hypocrite. And I just love the fact that both of us, I feel like we're on similar journeys where we're, all of these new techniques that we're learning, it's all pretty new for us both. I think that's beautiful. And hopefully, we can inspire others as well who, maybe looking for answers, maybe looking for a way to also gain, the self-love that they've wanted in their lives.
Yeah, I definitely think that your listeners, your viewers are going to hopefully out of this series learn some new things and just appreciate we're still learning, we're still exploring, we're still trying to do whatever we can to really tap more into our authenticity, to find more self-love and to share that and inspire other people. So come along for the journey with us.
I love it. So some future episodes that myself and Denise have planned are on yoga meditation and healing the fact that it's not linear, And do you want to explain a bit about that one?
Yeah, I mean, any journey that you go on, there's times when you feel like you're moving forward and gaining momentum, and times where you feel like it's kind of stepping back. And so we're just going to kind of walk people through what that experience is like and how to keep moving forward with those starts and stops and revisiting and circle. You know, it's kind of a winding journey, but it's always moving you to a new place.
Oh, excellent. Brilliant. And then other episodes we have are on self-awareness and difficulties with relationships with family and friends, just, you know, experiences of our professional lives and how that links to trauma and overcoming shame, and also talking about different resources that have really helped us, and hopefully they can help you. So a lot of exciting topics to come, and you know, if there is anything that you yourselves would like us to cover, then please do message me, email me, info at victim2victor.net. So I had to think about that then because I have a few email addresses. And yeah, and I think, you know, we've obviously come to an end today of our talk. It's been such an honor to have you on my show again, Denise.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's lovely having these conversations. I look forward to having our chats and hopefully, again, inspiring your listeners.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, lovely. And we will see you again probably next week. And in the meantime, I want you all to stay inspired and keep loving yourselves. Namaste.